Hey guys, welcome back to my channel, and if you are new here, my name is Jamie. I talk all things sonography, sometimes lifestyle, sometimes fitness, but mostly sonography. And today I wanted to talk about the 5 things that I wish I knew before starting ultrasound. And so without further ado, I'm gonna go ahead and hop into this video. Okay, so my number one thing before getting into ultrasound I wish that I knew was that there was going to be a ton of physics. So I know you hear probably all the time how hard taking your SPI is, and honestly looking back at it, and once I passed it I was like, oh my god, that wasn't hard at all. But when you first get into ultrasound, you have to take your core classes and then you get into the ultrasound courses, right? So in your core classes we have your algebra. I think we took an algebra course, maybe 1 or 2, I'm not sure, I can't remember. But there was also physics. I was lucky enough that I had an astrophysicist teacher, and it was pretty neat because she had excitement for it, which kind of made it a little easier to understand. And even when I wasn't understanding the actual physics of it, I went to tutoring. Tutoring helped me the most, and because physics is something that we use every day in life, once you get once it clicks, it's stuck. So just when I learned physics, I get into my ultrasound physics courses, and it was like learning a whole new language. Physics, ultrasound physics it's kind of like a dry thing to learn. Like reading in your book was just kind of like, right? So I think that's what made it so hard. Now, I always tell people, if you have the green Edelman physics book, if you read that from front to back and then from back to front, by the time you get to the front, it like all makes sense, which is what I had to do because the book was so dry to me. I mean, it has great explanation, but if I'm bored with something, I'm not learning anything. So like, I liked regular physics, got into ultrasound physics and was like, this isn't for me. So I took the test. I failed my first time. Let me tell you, the first time I took my ultrasound, my SPI, I was in there, no joke, the electricity shut off in the middle of me testing. So everybody who was in there got to retake their test. There was a guy in there that was coughing and talking and singing out loud, which you're supposed to be super quiet. So that was another thing. And they were also doing some like construction. So it was like, just wasn't for me. So anyways, I failed. The first time by like 4 points, and I was so upset, but because of all those distractions I was able to retake it, and then I passed it. And once I retook it, it was different. I don't know if it took the stress away from me failing the first time, and then the second time I was like not stressed, but it all made sense. So yes, if you're getting into ultrasound, physics is one thing that you will be doing, and you use it every day as a sonographer. The only difference is when you're out in the field, it's already muscle memory, so you don't have to think about it before adjusting your settings on the machine. It just kind of comes natural to you. So yes, there is physics, and I wish I knew it before getting into ultrasound, but would it change anything? Probably not, because I love what I do. My number 2 thing that I wish I knew before getting into ultrasound would be bodily fluids. The reason I didn't become a nurse, number 1 reason, is I was on track to become a nurse. I was going to school for it. I don't like needles. I used to draw blood when I did x-ray like back years ago, and I just could not stop shaking. I do not like needles. I feel like maybe now if I were to go back to school I might be able to handle it, but also too, I just don't like needles, and I don't like bodily fluids, and I could never see myself doing some of the things that nurses do. So nurses, you are awesome. In my opinion, you guys are awesome. But bodily fluids. In sonography, going into it, you think you're just going to be scanning, but there are so many times that you deal with bodily fluids. Like if you go up to the floor, to scan someone, you may deal with feces, you may deal with urine. When you're doing procedures, obviously there's blood. Same thing, like blood is very common, especially if you're in the ER, because you'll get some people who are coming in with vaginal bleeding, bleeding in general. Like, you are going to deal with blood. as a sonographer. You also will deal with like ascites, like when you're doing your paracentesis, all that fluid that comes off of a body goes into a canister. When that canister starts to get full, you have to put a solidifier in there. So you are messing with those bodily fluids, right? Sometimes you have to go on the psych floor and scan somebody, and you never know what you're going to get on the psych floor. So with that being said, I wish I would have known. I think it would have just prepared me more to get into the field. So you will deal with bodily fluids of some sort. Okay, and speaking of bodily fluids, smells kind of come along with that. Let me tell you, you are going to smell some of the most god-awful things as a sonographer. So if you can't handle smells and you're early in your sonography career, you might want to think about another career path. Don't let that stop you, because I know I joke, but there's ways of going about it. So a lot of us have the tricks of the trade, and then COVID actually kind of made it a little better for us, so you can always wear your mask. And some people will put their mask on and put like things up their nostrils so they can't smell, or they'll use Vicks, or they'll put some other kind of smell within their mask, like some essential oils maybe, in order to not smell some of the smells you will smell so strong. So there are tricks. So don't let it really. I joke when I say you might want to think about your career field, but it's not every patient. You just got to remember that, like, some people don't have the opportunity to shower all the time. You will deal with the homeless community. You'll deal with people who weren't properly taken care of, who are older, and unfortunately they smell. And then also too, if you're dealing with somebody who can't really move themselves, there will be obviously feces, so you're gonna smell that as well. You're gonna smell urine. There's just tons of smells that you just can't like avoid, and you just go in there and be professional, be sympathetic and compassionate, wear your mask with your Vicks, and you'll be fine. But the smells are pretty bad, so I wish I would have known it. I would have been more prepared. So my number 4 thing that I wish I knew before getting into sonography, it's going to be a pretty heavy one, and so will my number 5. I saved them for last so I could put like a trigger warning on this, let you know that if you can't deal with the things that are heavy on your heart, you might not be able to watch this. But my number 4 thing is that I wish that I would have known that I would have been part of the process of organ harvesting. What that means is we have to sometimes image organs to make sure that they are good to go ahead and donate. We also will do procedures. With that being said, when I was first in the career field, I was at my extern site, and we had a patient come in who had an accidental drug overdose. It was prescription meds, and then they drank with it, and so they ended up going into a coma. So this person ended up being pronounced dead, brain dead, so they were on life support to stay alive because they were a donor. So they called us up there, and at the time I was still a student. I was getting ready to graduate, so they called us up there to make sure the patient's liver was not inflamed. So we had to go up and measure the liver, and then we set up for a procedure. So we were going to biopsy the liver to make sure that it was good and it was in good condition for the recipient to receive that liver. The part that's hard about that is that the patient looks like they're just asleep. And so you have family in the room when you're scanning. They know that their child, their husband, their wife, whatever, their family member, their loved one is not coming back. They know what's going on. So you're in there scanning. When you set up for the procedure, you set up the procedure just like you would anybody else. It's very sad. Like, you can feel how heavy it is in the room and your heart hurts. It's very sad, but it's also kind of like very transactional, and and it feels weird, and I don't know how to explain it. And then the nurse who is on the receiving donor team will come in, they'll take your sample, they run it to their lab to make sure that it's good, and then obviously when it's time, if everything's okay, then obviously they harvest the organs and then give it to the recipient. So I wish I would have known that, because I wasn't prepared for that. Like, I wanted to cry the entire time I was scanning, but obviously we can't. It was really hard. And I've done multiples of those since then, but I kind of didn't expect to do one while I was in school. So that leads me to my number 5 thing, and this one came later on. When I was in school, a lot of the girls that I went to school with, they had experienced fetal demise while they were in school. So they had us to come talk to. I did not experience it until I was out in the field. And let me tell you, the first time that you go to scan a mom who's excited about being pregnant and their baby has no heartbeat is one of the most gut-wrenching things in this world. And so, like, I just don't think that those things can be prepared for. Like, I don't think you know how to prepare for them. Even if you did know how to prepare for them, you don't know how to handle it. So those are my top 5 things. Now, with that being said, I will say that anytime you work with a doctor, a radiologist, your MFM, whoever, do not be scared to ask them for advice. If you find something on your scan but you don't know how to describe it, or you don't know what it is and you want to have a better idea, feel free to either ask another sonographer or the doctor or the radiologist, because 9 times out of 10 they're not going to mind helping you, and they would rather you ask them than do something or say something incorrect. So those are my top 5 things. I do have 5 more. If you're interested in seeing those, please leave me a comment down in the bottom and I would be happy to make another video. Thank you guys. If you watched this whole video, thank you so much. And if you liked it, please give it a thumbs up. And I hope you're having a wonderful day. Bye guys.